Hey everyone. So I'm going to start doing patch rundown reviews, basically just going over patch notes really quick based on what Mordog shares right before the patch drops, and basically just giving you my thoughts about the patch and a meta prediction, essentially. So with that being said, let's just get started. Alright, so first we have player damage. Player damage is going up in stage 4, 5, and 6, so basically you take 1 extra damage every single time you lose a fight. This basically makes it where you have to stabilize off of stage 4 and 5 a lot sooner than you would have to. So if you're trying to greed, let's say like it's stage 4-2 and you're greeding until 4-5, you have to be careful because you're taking more damage in stage 4. I think the most impactful part of this is the stage 5 damage. Stage 5 is when people start to get killed, so if you're taking 1 extra damage, it can definitely make a difference. So stage 5, you have to get your board established, otherwise you will start bleeding out. As for stage 6, obviously you just want to be careful and trying to win your fight because 12 base damage for a stage is very high. So yeah, player damage, they're just trying to make late game a lot more punishing. Now one last thing I want to say about the base damage for stage 4 is going for 7 to 8. This can actually potentially help 3-cost reroll because if 3-cost rerolls spike in stage 4, let's say you hit a 3-cost 3-star really early, then you can be dishing out a lot of damage to people. So I don't know how this is going to actually affect 3-cost reroll, but it could potentially make 3-cost reroll more viable than it currently is this patch. So they're trying to make 4-cost comps harder to play. So 3-cost might come back, it might not, it really just depends. Alright, moving on, shop odds. We have the 2-cost odds at level 8 going from 25 to 27, and then the 4-cost odds going from 22% to 20%. So they're basically they shifted 2% over to the 2-cost odds. They probably didn't move it over to the 3 costs because they wanted it to be the less impactful. So they wanted it to be 2 costs instead of 3 costs. 20% odds at level 8 is actually fairly significant because 20% compared to 22%, and then it used to be 25%. This basically makes it so, let's say you're on stage 4-2 and you have 30 gold after leveling to 8. With 20% odds, you're probably less likely to hit the 2-star that you're looking for. So they're basically punishing you for going level 8 too quickly. But at the same time, if you don't go 8 quick enough, then you're probably not going to have enough HP to survive. So it basically just makes it harder to assess whether you are in the spot to go level 8 or not. Now, as for level 9, they moved the 1-cost odds from 10% to 15%, and then the 4-cost odds from 35 to 30%. They're basically just doing the same thing at level 9. To be honest though, level 9, by the time you are level 9, chances are your 4-cost is already upgraded, so in the grand scheme of things, I don't really think this matters. This is just making sure that 4-cost 3-stars are a lot less common, so level 9, I don't expect that much to change. And one other thing I'll say is chase traits are probably getting indirectly buffed like this because some chase traits like Mythic need some 1-costs, so if you're trying to go level 9 and you have some, you want to pick up like a 1-cost for the chase trait, then yeah, this is an indirect buff because the odds are higher. So level 8, harder to play. Level 9, if you get there, definitely not as impactful as it used to be. But if your win condition is a 3-star 4-cost, then it's definitely harder. Moving on, we have XP cost, level 8 to 9. So this basically just means that for 72 gold to 80, you need 8 more gold. And this basically just makes it, in combination with the player damage, you have to be more stable before you can go level 9. In the current patch, I see some people just going level 9 for free because it's not really that punishing. So this definitely make it to where if you go level 9 too quickly, you either bleed out or you just don't have enough gold. It really just depends. They're just making it harder to get to level 9. As for level 9 to 10, they're decreasing it from 84 to 80 gold. If you have enough gold to go level 10 anyway, chances are you're going top 4, so it doesn't really matter. As for double up, I've never played double up in my life, so sorry, no opinion. Okay, moving on, encounters. RA player health, 15 to 10. Honestly, nobody really cares about this encounter. It nerfs Fortune, I guess. That's all it really does. Next is Irelia, number of each shops. I've never seen this encounter before, so I don't know, sorry, no opinion. Moving on, the encounters will appear slightly more often. The Kane 5 to 4 death game. There'll probably be a lot more people talking about this. This encounter is incredibly rare. I've only seen it once myself. But basically, the goal is to obviously save as much HP, and then 5-4, everybody dies. And then they have the Orin artifact. They're trying to push the new items out. There's a lot more artifacts that are coming out in this patch. So there's probably going to be a lot of people messing with them and optimizing them. Everyone will have to see how the artifacts come into play in the new patch. And then the encounters will appear less often. They're getting rid of the Cho'Gath component or Slapshots one. I'm actually happy they're removing this one because this one is just not very fun. Salvage Bin, I've literally never seen this one. The Move Free Carousel Irelia one is actually really good. I wish they would remove this entirely because this thing's actually toxic for the game. Nico, Lesser Champion Duplicator, this one's just to make sure that duplicators are less common. Timo Spatula Carousel, not everybody wants a spatula all the time, so this one makes sense. And then the Radiant Item Carousel, I'm glad they're making this one a lot less common as well, because basically, in some cases, let's say your last pick, and you are forced to take a Radiant item that you don't need, well, tough luck. And they're also making it so it can no longer appear in Stage 2. That's really good. And then the encounters that have been removed, the Kha'Zix one, lower XP cost for 3 turns. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people pump levels, and then the Kha'Zix encounter comes up when they have 10 gold, and then they can't use it at all. And then the person with Hedge Fund goes level 10. So yeah, this encounter was not very well designed. In terms of the other ones, duplicators, once again, they're just trying to make 3-star forecast a lot less common. Duplicator Carousel, and then the 2-star forecast Carousel. They're trying to make forecasts a lot less common. Okay, so moving on to traits. So traits, first we have Arcanist, 6-piece going from 85 to 90 for the Arcanists themselves, and then 125 to 135% for the Arcanists themselves. This is really just a minor nerf, minor buff at 6, and then I would say quite a significant buff at 8. Now you have to keep in mind that Arcanist 8, you need an emblem for that, an uncraftable one as well, so you're probably not going to be playing around 8 Arcanists that much. But for the 6-piece, if you're just going vertical Arcanist, I would say that this 5 buff isn't really that significant. The part that really caught my interest was the 40 to 50% AP for the team. When you play vertical Arcanist, your other tank is Amumu aside from Malawi, and that 10 extra HP AP can definitely help the Amumu tank a little bit more. So I honestly expect vertical Arcanist to be stronger in this patch, especially with the Zoe buffs that are coming up. And Syndra is also getting a buff as well. So yeah, so watch out for Arcanist. So you also have to keep in mind that while these buffs don't look really big, you have to keep in mind that Zoe is getting a buff, Syndra's getting a buff, and then the comps that are making Arcanist struggle right now are also getting nerfed. So basically, vertical Arcanist will probably be in a really good spot. I've had some success with this comp in a patch where it's really not ideal to play vertical Arcanist. So next patch, I expect it to be pretty good. Alright, next we have Dryad. Dryad is getting a nerf at 6. HP is going down by 1, and then the AP is going down from 65 to 55. In the grand scheme of things, this mostly just affects Gnar. This will nerf the comp because Kindred likes the AP, but for the most part, like, Gnar is the main menace in that comp. So 6 Dryad just getting a light nerf. I don't think Gnar will be unplayable. It's just to make sure that the comp stays in line. Next we have Duelist. 4 Duelists getting a buff here, and then 6 Duelists also getting a buff. Very minor buff. Duelists have been struggling in this patch right now, so it makes a lot of sense. One last thing I will say about Duelist is that at 4 Duelist, you can tempo with this early game if you get like a good Duelist setup. Watch out for 4 Duelists in the early game. Next we have Fated, set Omni Event bonus. This looks like more of just like an adjustment. Set is a 5 cost, he has to be good, otherwise there's a problem, so in the grand scheme of things, like, this doesn't really matter. And then Fortune, 7 Fortune is getting nerfed. I honestly don't even think this matters because 7 Fortune is basically an auto win. If anybody can pilot it well, then 7 Fortune is just really broken. But we'll see what happens with all the player damage as well, so maybe Fortune 7 is not an auto win anymore, who knows. Alright, so next trait we have is Heavenly. Basically what they're trying to do is make this scale better off of the Heavenly units themselves instead of for the whole team. So let's say, for example, you have 6 Heavenly right here, 200%. Now it's going to 175% for Kayn and Morgana. But for the Heavenly units, they're getting buffed. So basically, this means that if you're playing like Heavenly Wukong or something, it's really good. But you can't just splash in random units with Heavenly anymore. This also makes the Yone comp that was in the previous patch, like, I don't know, you can't even play this anymore. I think it's too weak. Will the Kayn Morgana comp be dead? Maybe, or maybe you just need a spat to play it now. So we'll see what happens. They're really just trying to touch on this Heavenly trait because it's super easy to play, and so They're emphasizing more on playing the heavenly units themselves instead of just splashing them in and then playing like 2 carries or something. Next, we have Story Weaver. Story Weaver is just getting a small buff for Kale. To be honest, like Kale is struggling right now in Story Weaver just because I believe the other comps are pretty strong. Do I think this will make Kale S tier or anything? No, but it's just a nice little adjustment. And also to make sure that Story Weaver just doesn't go overboard. Alright, next we have Umbral. 6 Umbral, execute threshold from 20 to 25%, and then 9 Umbral from 45 to 60%. 9 Umbral, you need 3 spats, so like this should be like very good. Makes a lot of sense. As for 6 Umbral, I'm actually kind of scared of this because I've seen a loon pop off on some boards. Yes, it can be hard to get the setup, but 25% execute, that means that you're playing with 3/4 of your HP when you're against an enemy 6 Umbral. And I've seen a loon do some pretty nasty damage, so 6 Umbral can definitely be a lot more viable next patch. Be careful of 6 Umbral. Alright, next we have the 1 and 2 cost changes. So first we have Darius, 1 and 2 star, on hit damage getting nerfed. This is fine, especially with the duelist changes. He's also just a really disgusting item holder for like BT, Titans, Hodge in the early game. If you have an Umbral, he basically has a free locket, free health execute, so this guy is really strong in the early game if you play around his traits. Makes a lot of sense why he's getting a slight nerf here. Next, we have Kog'Maw getting buffed at 2 and 3 star, 225 to 240, 315 to 335. This basically just makes Kog'Maw reroll probably revived again. Right now, you can't really play Kog'Maw reroll because he just gets stomped by legendary boards. But with all the changes coming to level 8 and 9, if you get a good Kog'Maw reroll spot, then I would say it's definitely going to be a lot better than it is in this current patch. Alright, next is Riven. She's getting an AD buff on her ability. You're not really building AD on Riven, so like, just like a Riven with no items, this helps a little bit. If you're just playing Riven, just to have a Riven on your board to tempo, this small buff is actually like, it could be pretty nice just to kill some extra units. But for the most part, I would say this change only impacts 3-star Riven for the most part. So if you see some more Riven reroll next patch, be on the lookout. Alright, next we have a Loon, the attack speed change. Just like I mentioned about Umbral just earlier, basically like I'm honestly a little bit scared about Umbral. I think it's just like secretly good right now, and a lot of people haven't caught on. But I will also say Loon, it can be hard to play, so I mean maybe it won't be as much of a menace as I believe. But yeah, this attack speed change might make her a little bit scarier, so just be careful of Umbral, Invoker, Loon next patch. Next we have Bard, he's just getting 5 AD. This is a 10% buff, so everything that happens with him at 2-star or 3-star, you put a Deathblade on him or something, he gets more AD from that. Bard has been completely dead right now, so I mean, with 3 costs becoming probably easier to play because of the level 8 and level 9 being harder to play. Like I said earlier, 3 costs, if you stabilize on stage 4, you're actually punishing the enemy boards a lot harder. So Bard, maybe he might be a viable comp to play as he was in the very first patch of Set 11, so Bard might make a comeback. Alright, next we have Tristana, 55 to 60 AD. This is about close to 10%. She's getting less ability AD granted, but her spell hits a lot harder. And so at 3-star especially, 270% to 305. Duelist, like Tristana and Volibear, probably is going to be a real comp again, especially with these Volibear buffs as well. This is also an indirect nerf to Fortune, because with Fortune you don't want to win your fights. So Tristana having a bigger spell, more AD, you might actually win a fight with Fortune, so you have to be a little bit more careful when you're trying to lose streak with Fortune. And speaking of duelists, Volibear, just getting his heal amped up here. This is basically, I would say, to compensate for the Titans change that happened this patch. So Volibear might be as good as he was in the previous patch. Maybe not as strong, but he did need a little bit of love, because in this current patch, if you try to play 6 duelists, Volibear, Tristana reroll, you're going to have a really bad time. So in this upcoming patch, I expect the 6 duelist comp to be playable again. And then next, we have Zoe. I'd say the big part is the 3-star one, 640 to 695. Zoe has the worst average placement right now for a 3 cost, I believe. That might be because of Fortune, but I have never seen a 3-star Zoe carry actually be successful. I've seen it maybe like top 4, but you can't actually win with it because she just doesn't do enough damage. So with all this base that she's getting, as well as the 6 Arcanist buffs and the 8 Arcanist buff, I think Zoe reroll definitely, once again, is going to be an option. They're just trying to bump up 3 costs to make them a little bit more viable than they currently are. Having these 3 cost buffs will also keep 4 costs in check, because if you have 3 costs rerollers, basically you're putting pressure on the lobby. So this is definitely a win condition, I would say, in the next patch. Moving on to 4 and 5 costs, Kayn just getting 10 armor and a MR nerf, basically making it easier to kill him. In combination with the heavenly changes, you have to keep in mind he gets armor and MR from Malphite, and the heavenly changes getting nerfed, Kayn is going to be a lot easier to kill. So I don't know how strong this comp is actually going to be, or if it's even going to exist next patch. That's why I said I think you just need a spat to play it now, because if you have a spat, it's probably going to be pretty close to how it was in the previous patch without a spat. So Kayn is probably definitely still playable in the heavenly line, but you can't just slot in all the units and just top 4 for free. Speaking of Kayn, Morgana 3 stars getting buffed, and she also has a change here where she's just more likely to hit clumps of units. This is actually pretty significant because sometimes she just casts her spell on like 1 unit, wastes everything. So Morgana, if you're not playing her with Kayn, you can just slot her in for Sage or something. She's definitely going to be more reliable. So Morgana, I would say a pretty solid champion in the upcoming patch. And next we have Syndra, 8 starting orbs instead of 7. This is basically going to buff the vertical faded comp as well as the Arcanist comp that I mentioned earlier. So I expect Syndra to be very, very good next patch. Don't sleep on Syndra. I actually think this patch you can get away with her pretty well with just a good front line. She ramps up enough. But in the next patch, she's definitely going to be a lot scarier than she currently is. Okay, next we have Lissandra. Honestly, like 100 HP nerf, 40, like 10% chance to get loot. Like this doesn't change anything. Lissandra's main problem is the fact that she can lock down a target for 3 seconds and then she just yeets them across the board. So if you're playing like a tank or something, or like a melee carry, Lissandra's just an anti of that. So I don't know what Riot is thinking. They need to nerf her stun duration, do something about that single target stun, but I don't know. We'll see next patch if she gets an adjustment, because she's right now one of the most oppressive champions right now. You hit her on level 8 for free and you just cruise your way to top 4. Okay, so new support items. I'm going to try my best to understand what these do, so let's just go over them together. So every 5 seconds, all enemies are 33% wounded and all allies deal 7% more damage for 5 seconds. So I would say this is like having a Sunfire on your board without the damage, and then your team gains a small damage buff. 7% I don't really think is that significant, but for a support item, you just throw it on your board and you get some wound and damage. So I would say this item is like, it looks fairly good. Next we have Spite. When the unit dies, reduce the attack damage and AP of the enemy units within 2 hexes. This kind of reminds me of Chemtake from set 9, except you don't do damage, you just reduce their AD and AP, so you're basically just reducing their damage. And then allies within the explosion also gain 20% AD and AP for the same duration. 10 seconds is pretty significant, so if you are going to use this, you want to position your units in a way where you debuff your enemies as well as gain the benefits from your units. I would say that melee carries are definitely going to love this item, so you just place like a random deadweight unit next to it, have them explode, and I would say this is a pretty good buff and debuff. Next is Nice Vow, grant HP and 50% Omnivamp to the holders and allies within 1 hex of the same row. So basically this is really good on melee units. So like Kayn will probably really love this. This is basically like the Omnivamp and HP version of Zeke's and Chalice. So yeah, definitely a viable support item for melee carries. Next is Unstable Treasure Chest. When the holder dies, grant 3 completed items to nearby allies. I'm assuming this is tailored items, so if this is tailored items, it's going to be very good. If it's random, then this will probably suck a lot, but I guess we'll just see if it's tailored items or not. Next we have Moonstone Renewer. Every 4 seconds, shield the 2 lowest percent held allies for 100 to 400 HP, based on stage for 4 seconds. So it's basically like having a Janna on your board, if that makes sense. I mean, Janna's shield can be pretty nice sometimes, so having a shield on your 2 lowest health units can definitely change the fight. So I would say this is pretty decent. So moving on, we have new artifacts. These are Ornn items. Basically, let's start off with this one. The Trench Coat, 250 HP, 25% AS. Once per combat at 50% HP, the holder splits into 3 copies of themselves with 33% of their max health. I immediately see this and I think of CC units, so I'm thinking like Recon, Nautilus. Really will love this item because the more CC units you have on the board, the much better it is. Next is Light Shield Crest, 50 armor, 50 magic resist. Every 3 seconds, shield the lowest percent health ally for 50% of the holder's combined armor and magic resist. On death, grants the shield to all allies. So this is really good on tanks, and I would say something like, if you solo frontline this with stone plates, you could probably get a lot of value out of this. Stone plate gives you a lot of armor and magic resist. So yeah, I would say like stone plate or declaw bramble, and then put this item on your tank. Probably very, very strong. Next is Talisman of Ascension, 400 HP, 20 AD, 20 AP. After 18 seconds, gain 100 max HP and 150% increased damage for the rest of combat. So 150% increased damage is quite significant. You have to get 18 seconds of this, so you're probably putting this on a backline carry. I highly doubt you're going to put this on a melee carry unless you have something like Edge of Night where you can drop aggro or something. But if you can get this 18 seconds off on your carry, they're going to be very strong, like a super unit, essentially. So I guess it just depends who you're going to put this on, but if you can keep them protected for 18 seconds, you're good to go for the rest of the fight, I would say. So this item can be, honestly, it could be problematic, who knows. Next we have another Locket, Innervating Locket, 150 HP, 15 mana. The holder gains 2% of their total mana whenever they're hit by an attack. Each cast restores 20% to the holder, something I can't read that. Honestly, this looks like an adaptive helm almost, and then the more you cast, it gives benefit to your team or something like that. So I immediately just think whoever uses adaptive helm in the front 2 rows can also use this item as well, because when they're taking damage, they're gonna get mana. Okay, next, Unending Despair, 400 HP, 40 armor, so it's a frontline item. Whenever a shield on the holder breaks, 100% of the shield's initial value is dealt to the nearest enemy as magic damage. So basically anybody who has a shield, so like probably Ornn likes this, Lee Sin can use this. I mean, you can also shield a nearby ally and then have that also give you shield. So it just depends on who you're running it on. But this looks like a shield item. Okay, moving on to more artifacts. Prowler's Claw, 25% AD, 25% crits. You're probably putting this on a Reaper. So after you kill a target, you get a shed negative effect, which is very similar to Edge of Night. Dash to the farthest target within 4 hexes. So this basically means that you don't want to position opposite side. You want to position as far away as possible, like 4 hexes more, so they don't dash to your backline carry. The next 2 critical attacks deal 6% bonus critical strike damage. So you combine this with like IE or something, or Reapers. This is basically like an assassin item. It's gonna make some pretty interesting positioning puzzles. Next artifact is Horizon Focus, 250 HP, 15 mana, 20 armor, 20 magic resist. Stunning an enemy causes lightning to strike them, dealing 30% of their max health as magic damage. So anyone who stuns, like Nautilus, Nautilus probably loves this item. In terms of like units that can't stun anybody, I don't know who you would actually build this on, but yeah, I guess we'll find out what happens. So next we have Mittens, 60% attack speed. Shrinks the holder, granting them increased movement speed, 20% damage reduction, and immunity to chill. So at first, this might look like a replacement for Rageblade, but I'm thinking this is more better on units like Lee Sin, because of the 20% damage reduction, and he's a frontliner with like Omnivamp or something. He can tank some pretty good damage if he has a lot of attack speed. But I guess we'll see like who can actually use this. I would say that tanks who also CC might be able to use this, because the more attack speed you have, the more likely you are to cast. In terms of putting this on a backliner, it's still definitely viable, but the 20% damage reduction is probably not going to be very helpful until they're the last unit alive. Our next is Forbidden Idol, 200 HP, 25 armor, 25 magic resist. Shields have 50% of their value converted into max health instead. So this is really good on units like Recon. Once again, anybody who shields. So this is looking like Lee Sin once again. A lot of these artifacts look like they're good on Lee Sin. And then next we have Rapid Fire Cannon RFC. It's back as an artifact. Gain 1 attack range, increased by 1 whenever the holder kills an enemy. So you could put this on a sniper probably. You're going to get some really good attack speed. You can kill some units. You get infinite attack range. This is probably not good on Kog'Maw though, because he already gets some attack range, but someone like Aphelios or any backliner who just wants attack range. This also works on melee carries, so like melee carries that used to use RFC in the previous sets, the item is back. Alright, next we have Silvermere Dawn, 165% AD, 50 armor, 50 magic resist, grants immunity to stuns, and the holder's attack stun the target for 0.8 seconds, and the holder's attack speed is locked at 0.5. So you basically want to put this on a tank who has really slow attack speed anyway. I immediately think of Nautilus. This is an item to lock down one target. I don't know why they really hate melee carries or something. I don't know. This is looking like an anti melee carry item. But you have to keep in mind that this also gives QS an opportunity to shine, because QS is really like a dead item right now. So who knows? If this becomes meta, then QS will become more meta. Our next is Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. Attacks deal an additional 50% attack damage as physical damage, and heal the holder for damage dealt. The holder cannot cast their ability or gain mana. So I don't really know who this would go on. I was thinking, let's say you put it on Aphelios with like a Hurricane or something. You'll be doing a lot of attack speed and get a lot of bolts flying out. But like the Omni-Vamp part doesn't really matter on a backliner. So if you put this on somebody like, I don't know, let's just say Lee Sin again. Does this really matter? I don't know, like Lee Sin's spell is pretty good in Mana Reaves. So, I don't know. This is probably good on somebody who just doesn't care about their spell that much. But I'll have to think about it a little bit more. Our next we have Seeker's Arm Guard. The item for midnight if you're building Zanya's in Summer's Rift. Takedowns increase the holder's armor, magic resist, and ability power by 10. Increase to 15 if they score the kill. So this is good on, like, I would say Magic Reapers. So like melee units who want these tank stats, and also like AP. So I'm immediately just thinking this is like a Titans for AP mostly. So Volibear probably loves this a lot. You could definitely put this on a backliner, but the defensive stats probably don't get used as well. But yeah, I immediately just think Volibear when I think of this item here. Alright, next we have Spectral Cutlass, 40% AD, which is actually kind of a lot, 20% crit. Combat start teleports the holder to the mirrored hex on the enemy side of the board. After 8 seconds, the holder returns to their original location. So basically, you're using this to assassinate a target. I feel like this item is probably not that good if you're gonna clump your units to prevent them from going to that hex. But then again, like clumping your units to prevent one item can be pretty detrimental to your team. I guess it just really depends. You want to keep your carries alive, so this will be some kind of positioning. This will be like a positioning game in terms of like an item and all that. Okay, and then next we have Blighting Jewel, 40 AP. Dealing magic damage reduces the magic resist by 3. If their magic resist is 0, grants the holder 5 mana instead. So you're this is like a Shiv without attack speed on one target. You're probably gonna put this on a unit that doesn't really carry you, because this doesn't look like a carry item, but you could definitely just put this on like a support who likes AP, and it'll help you shred down one target in terms of AP. Because gaining mana on a support, they could cast more. This seems like more of a support item. But I don't know, I could be wrong. You might be able to put this on your main carry. Who knows? Okay, next is Lichmane, 15 mana, 30 AP. The holder's first attack after each ability cast deals 180 bonus magic damage. Damage increases based on stage. So anybody who likes to cast very frequently, so I'm just assuming anybody who likes to use blue buff. So like Kindred, Syndra, yeah, very low mana pool users will probably really like this item. Okay, next we have Fishbones, 30 AD, 30 attack speed. Doubles the holder's attack range and causes each of their attacks to target a random enemy. I would say like you would want to put this on an AD sniper, so like Aphelios, Ashe really like this item. You could think of this as like a Hurricane almost. Okay, next, Luden's Tempest. Anyone who remembers, Luden's was a buildable item a long time ago in TFT, but they brought it back as a, looks like AD and AP units can use it. 30% AD, 30% 30 AP. 100% of overkill damage plus 100 is dealt as magic damage to 3 enemies nearest to the target. So I don't know how good this looks on paper, but sometimes when you overkill a target, you waste all that damage. So I'm thinking units that do a lot of single target damage will probably like this item. So maybe like Caitlyn, for example. All that overkill damage goes over to the other units. Okay, next, Curse Blade. They brought this back. Anyone who played set 1. 15% attack speed, 20 magic resist. Attacks reduce the target's max HP by 3%. 13 attacks on the same target reduce their star level by 1. If anyone remembers how toxic this item was in set 1, yeah, it was pretty bad. But it's an artifact, and the stats aren't really that good. But if you target like a frontline champion with this thing, you can actually reduce somebody's 3-star to a 2-star. So yeah, this item honestly might cause some problems, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Curse Blade was one of those items that they got rid of, and I don't know why they're bringing it back, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, and the last artifact is Wit's End, 30 attack speed, 30 magic resist, attacks deal 42 bonus magic damage, and heals the holder for 35% of all magic damage dealt. I look at this and I immediately just think Volibear. I don't know who else would use this, but yeah, we'll see who can actually use these items. Volibear looks like he can really use this item quite well. Okay, next is Blacksmith's Gloves, 300 HP and 30% crit. So Capricious Forge is gonna get a pretty big buff next patch, so if you see Capricious in your Augment pool, you might want to take this just for the stats. I mean, this is really good. 30% crit, 300 HP. Next, they got rid of Goldmancers and Moggle's Mail. These two artifact items were really not that good. They kind of sucked, so I'm glad they're taking them out. Portable Forge now always gives 4 options, so they're just trying to make the artifacts a lot more accessible. Portable Forge plus and plus plus disabled. Makes sense. Okay, moving on to augments. Silver over encumbered. Bench slots 2 to 1. This silver augment is pretty good for silver, so it gets nerfed. You only get 1 bench slot now. You're getting 3 components from this, so I mean, yeah, the trade-off is definitely should be punishing for silver augment. Next, we have pumping up 1 base attack speed, 8 to 6%. This means that it takes 1 whole stage to get back up to what it used to be. This thing is overperforming in like for silver augments. Just giving your team attack speed for free is really good. So this nerf is fine. Triforce 1, they're trying to make 3 costs a little bit better. So Triforce 1, 50 extra HP for your 3 costs. That's fine. Next we have big gains. I don't think I've ever seen this augment be taken before, but basically 20 extra HP from the base stats. Honestly, I don't think this augment's gonna be very good. Like, I don't know. This augment just I've never seen anybody take it before. Okay, next build difference getting nerfed. Stage 3 and onwards, the HP is going down. And at stage 2, the attack speed is getting nerfed, and then all the stages as well. This is completely justified because in the previous patch, they nerfed they buffed the 4 costs, and then they didn't touch build different. So now this is not going to be an auto top 4 anymore, but I still expect build different to be really good. With the changes with all the level 8 and all that though, build different can still be hard to play. I think now you have to actually win streak in order to get rewarded for it. You can't just take it for free in top 4 anymore. So bit different, probably just not an auto take anymore, but definitely still good if your spots are good for it in stage 2. Next is Call to Adventure. This is the augment that buffs your Kale. 18 HP and 3 AP. I mean, 1 additional AP can be pretty significant. So if you could get a lot of kills for Kale, then I mean, this thing could probably be really good if you invest in Kale and get a Storyweaver emblem or something. This augment is underperforming right now, so definitely needed the buff. Next is Dragon Spirit. This is the augment where you get a declaw and then you have to heal a certain amount to get a component. Lowering that requirement from 8,000 to 7,000 just makes the augment a little easier to play. This thing is averaging, I believe, like a 4.6 or 4.7, so a slight buff will bring this up to maybe like a 4.5, 4.4. It'll be a balanced augment. Next we have Dynamic Duo. This is the augment that gives you a 5 cost and a bunch of gold. 20 gold. I mean, they're nerfing the level 8 and 9 and all that stuff, so this is just compensating for that. Next, Learning to Spell, base AP 18. This is the one where you get AP for your whole team when you get a kill. This augment is severely underperforming right now, so it needs the buff. Okay, next, Mind Over Matter re-enabled. I honestly don't even know what this augment is, so no comment on this one. And then Pandora's Items 2. So in set 9, because of Legends, they had to nerf this into 1 completed item, and then they now reverted it back into 2 random components. So Pandora's Items 2 is probably going to be a lot better now, but I still expect this augment to be pretty terrible. So, I mean, you only take this augment if your items are just completely trash. For the most part though, like, you take Pandora's Items 1 only, and you take Pandora's Items 3 only for that rating item. Pandora's Items 2 is kind of awkward, so I don't expect this augment to suddenly become very good, but giving 2 components instead of 1 completed item just gives you a little bit more agency. Okay, augments. Raining Gold. Anybody who watched my recent video where I got Raining Gold Plus, I think this augment is just way too strong. base gold 9 to 8. That could affect interest thresholds, but still, like, I still think this augment is just super broken in general. So 1 less gold probably doesn't change that much. Slam in plus, this thing is just to make level 8 and 9 harder to play. This augment's overperforming right now, but with all the forecast changes coming up, I actually think like this is fine. Slam is probably still going to be pretty decent, maybe just not as oppressive as it is right now. Moving on, Accomplice. The gold is going down from 4 to 2. This is just making the early game, because the early game you have these and then the support gloves. Really strong tempo start, they're just nerfing that down a little bit. Next is Build-A-Bud. This is the prismatic that automatically gives you a 3-star 1 cost. They're giving you 2 more gold. Sometimes if you might low roll like the 1 cost you get, 2 extra gold can help you get your econ or something. So pretty decent buff. Next is Call to Chaos. Less gold, less XP. 3-star, 3 cost gold is going up from 10 to 20. This is basically just, I would say, adjusting it, but also making it nerf in stage 4. So if you're trying to play around a 4 cost board, go level 9 or something, and you take this, it's getting nerfed, so not going to be as good in stage 4. But if you are playing like around a 3 cost carry and you get the 3 costs that you want, and you also get 10 more gold, definitely going to be really good. So it really just depends. And then next, going long, this is the prismatic where you can't gain interest anymore. They're giving you 10 gold. Normally this 2 extra gold would be very significant, but since you can't make interest, this is just like a slight buff just to help you out when you're trying to pick up some units in an early game. I don't think this is going to make going long crazy good or anything like that, but it's just to buff it up a little bit, help you out in the early game. And then last we have Infernal Contract. Honestly, don't know why this augment was still in the game ever since Site 11 came out. With things like encounters, making it easier to go level 9 and 10. Yeah, Infernal Contract, you need to rework this augment, because if you saw the stats for this thing, you would be absolutely horrified. Okay, next we have forecast 3-star adjustments. Basically, Lilia 3-star is absolutely fake. They're buffing the small orb damage. Honestly, I don't think this does anything. Lilia just needs a targeting change. Like her things usually miss. So like, I don't think giving damage really matters. But I guess we'll see. Ornn, 6 items forged, and now he's forging radiant items instead. That's a really big buff to this guy. And then Silas, 1200 instead of 1000, 550 instead of 450. 600 instead of 500. This is just, if you hit Silas 3, he should be really good. So yeah, Silas 3, it's probably going to carry you if you hit him. Definitely a good win condition. And then these small adjustments, these crests are basically just giving you extra stuff. So maybe like 2 champions. I honestly don't know why out of all of these, Story Weaver crest only gives you a Garen. In the current patch right now, Story Weaver crest doesn't give you anything. It just gives you the crest. I don't know why that's the case, but now it gives a Garen for free. Yay. And then you have stuff like Behemoth Crown. Instead of Warmongs, now you're getting a Sunfire Cape, which is really good. Behemoths lack damage, so Sunfire Cape gives you damage. And then Sage Crown, you can immediately play 3 Sage. I don't think Sage is really that good early game, so this is probably not that problematic. So yeah, just adjustments to all the crests and the crowns. And then last but not least, the bug fixes. I'm not going to read all these because it's going to take too long. But essentially, like, a lot of stuff just got adjusted, and that's pretty much the patch rundown. My opinion about the upcoming patch at 14.9 is 4 costs will definitely still be playable because of the HP buffs that they all got in this current patch. But it's not just going to be a rampant 4 cost meta where 4 costs are like the only viable comps to play unless you have a high roll spot for a reroll comp. I think 3 costs are definitely going to be a lot better this patch. They're just trying to make it so where a lot of different playstyles are viable. So you have to keep in mind that when 4 costs get weaker, or like level 8 and 9 boards get weaker, 3 cost and 2 cost and 1 cost reroll get a lot stronger. So it just depends on how badly 4 costs are going to get adjusted to the fact that how much it's going to actually affect the reroll comps. So it's hard to say for sure. Hopefully it lands in a good spot where there's a variety of comps that can be played. Because in this current patch, if you try to play 3 cost reroll, like the only current one that you can actually play is Aphelios. Every other one you have to high roll pretty hard. In this upcoming patch, I assume there's going to be a lot more stuff that will be playable. So I'm looking forward to this patch. I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing Kayn Morgana every single games. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. This is basically patch 14.9 rundown review. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you later.